In the work known as Vagabond, we get to know Japan in one of its most interesting historical stages, the Sengoku period. It was characterized by intense feudal warfare and political instability. Civil wars took place constantly. For example, the largest and most important battle of Japanese feudal history took place in this era, on the 21st of October of the year 1600. It was the Battle of Sekigahara, which sealed the fate of the country for the next 250 years. We see Musashi Miyamoto for the first time, or Shinmen Takezo, as he was better known at the moment, in the aftermath of the Sekigahara battle, when he was only 17 years old. He's lying down on the ground, as everyone else we can see in the horizon, but there's something quite different about him. He's not dead, he's not unconscious, and he's not surrendered in any way. His gaze is defiant and ruthless. It seems almost as if he's lying still as a sort of self-punishment. Takezo was ambitious. He had unrealistic standards, so much so that he would have been called neurotic or immature by everyone who didn't know him personally. He intended to take advantage of the Sekigahara battle to make a name for himself and rise to fame to earn his spot amongst the greatest swordsmen. He knew how capable he was. It was more than plausible. Sadly for him, the battle happened in such an unexpected and unconventional way that in the 8 hours it lasted, he could not cut a single man down. Takezo calls himself a failure and subconsciously plays with the idea of suicide. We see this when he decides to remain lying down on the ground, even after realizing that dozens of horses were running towards him. Any of them could crush him in an instant. Why would someone so ambitious value his life so little? It's actually logical. Takezo trusted his skill so much that he had designed a plan of what he was going to accomplish and of how fast he was going to do it. But as a perfectionist, not having been able to follow the first step of his plan, killing a general in the Sekigahara battle, meant that he wasn't perfect anymore, and he would never get to have the chance again. If he could not be perfect, he may as well die. That's the line of reasoning Takezo followed there. Matahachi Honi then, Takezo's childhood friend who accompanied him to war, is in the same situation as him. But although both men are regretting their actions, there is a clear difference. Matahachi blames himself for having been a fool and thinking that he could have made a name in the battlefield. He has discerned how that was an infantile and impossible desire.
Forgive me, mother. I left Sakushu to make a name for myself, but it all came to nothing. Forgive me. Otsu.
Takezo, on the other hand, does not feel guilty for having thought he could have made a name for himself, but for not having made one. He still believes he was capable enough. This sets a colossal schism between the two friends of Miyamoto village. Once the refugee hunters came, their attitudes towards life changed radically. Matahachi, feeling weak, tired and helpless, accepted his death. Takezo, on the contrary, quickly got over his frustration and took the threat as a new opportunity to gain recognition as a fighter. Even though it may not seem like it at this stage of the story, Takezo is a highly introspective person, pondering for long periods of time about himself and his relationship with the world. And this can be tied with why he is so drawn to fighting. One of the reasons he loves battling so much is that it grounds his mind and makes him loop out of his overthinking. fighting makes him think in a simple way.
You are gonna try to kill me. I'm gonna kill you.
He's been doing supposedly unbelievable things since he was a kid, so he finds no difficulty in believing in himself. It's easy for him to beat opponents through the use of his divergent thinking and his inhuman strength. He fights the refugee hunters in ways they did not expect, headbutting them, using a stick as a sword, or throwing them boulders. Defeating the samurai makes him believe in his strength once again, deciding that it is still not too late. He can still find a way that will lead him to his goal.
No way I'm gonna die. Oh, Shinmen Takezo.
One of the main reasons why he was rejected as a kid was his father. He still has a long way to go, but he now embraces rejection, taking pride in the family name of a father who never loved him, but who nevertheless was stronger than any of the Miyamoto villagers who shunned him. Now he values strength more than any other quality.
No way I'm gonna die. Oniven Matahachi.
Matahachi snapped out of his despair after seeing Takezo again. He still believes everything he had previously said to himself, but his admiration for Takezo is an even bigger force. He's more impulsed by the desire of avoiding humiliation than by the one of self-preservation. Takezo was in the same condition as him, yet he fought the refugee hunters.
Matahachi could not take any other decision than to follow him.
He does not want to be anything less, at least at this moment in time. The spark that made him want to go to war was ignited again. They arrive at a field full of lifeless bodies. They quickly realize something is wrong about the place, but despite their sudden glimpse of motivation, they are too tired to keep going, and they fall to the floor, unconscious. The next thing we see is the face of a mysterious woman putting on her makeup. She gets closer to Takezo as he wakes up, looking at him with a penetrating gaze. While Matahachi was already drunk and wanted to enjoy the company of the two ladies, Takezo, realizing they were already healed, told his friend they should leave immediately. In this concrete instance, he really wants to part. But that does not mean he does not usually present a tendency to avoid human relationships with everyone he does not already know well. His trauma has scarred him profoundly. Takezo enjoys contact with other people as long as it does not involve him opening up. He finds other humans interesting only when he can hide himself in the interior of his shell. This shell I'm referring to is his persona. The word persona was originally used to refer to a theatrical mask worn by actors to depict their roles. In the psychology mythos of Carl Jung, the persona is the mask we voluntarily create and use to present ourselves to the external world. The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Fittingly enough, a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. Takezo is offered shelter by Oko, the woman who was clearly attracted to him, and her daughter, Akemi. Matahachi is attracted to both of them, while both seem to gravitate towards Takezo, ironically because he is not interested in any of the two. Takezo goes to collect mushrooms with Akemi, and finally lets her have a proper conversation with him. She tells him she's 15, and that she makes a living with her mother through the recollection of battle equipment for their posterior selling. A menacing man approaches them. It's Tsuyikase Tenma. We learn of how strong he is, and of how deep of a mark he has left on Akemi. After seeing her cry while throwing stones at him, Tenma smiles and does not flinch. He's not bothered in any way by the attack. Later, Oko shows Matahachi and Takezo their equipment collection. They are reviewing the katanas. Takezo picks up a wooden sword, by which he is instantly charmed. His predilection towards the wood weapon acts as a means of showing us his desire to stand out and prove how utterly superior he is. He does not need to have a real sword to get the better of anyone he faces. This need to prove himself comes from his lack of self-worth. A bit later, Oko starts flirting with Takezo, an act that makes Matahachi jealous of his friend, more than he already was. Takezo is not used to drinking alcohol and falls asleep after his first sip. His sleeping mind remembers his father, Shinmen Munisai, the unequaled, one of the main sources of his trauma. He recalls the moment when he asked him about his gone mother. Father, where did she go? Mother's gone.
You are no longer to think of her as your mother. You little bastard. Don't give me that look. You've got the eyes of a beast.
He insults himself, rejecting the part of him that still longed for the presence of his mother, deeming it as weak. In a way, he's acting towards himself in the same way his father did, so many years ago. He also tries to repress the memory and hates himself for having been emotionally affected so heavily by his father. Oko tries to get intimate with Takezo, but he looks terrified for an instant. He feels vulnerable. He abruptly rejects her, making her feel humiliated. She confronts him, but he does not understand in what way he could have possibly embarrassed her. If he struggles to show affection to the few who are close to him, imagine showing it in such an aggressive way to a woman he does not know. Nevertheless, they are interrupted by the Tsuyikase gang, led by Tsuyikase Tenma, the man who killed Oko's husband. While the bandits are searching, trying to figure out where Oko had hid the equipment, Takezo and Matahachi set a trap for Tenma. He's able to see through it. He has an advantage of decades of experience over the two boys. He punches through the door. He knocks Matahachi, and he starts slamming Takezo's head onto the floor, over and over. But he notices something weird. A part of the palm of his hand is missing. Takezo had bit through it. He spits the bloody flesh in Tenma's face and hits him with his wooden sword. He's determined to kill him. I'm glad I left Miyamoto. You might be a brigand, but you are still a general. And I will have your head. Tenma is shocked. He did not expect this in any way. Takezo lacks his experience, but not only is he unafraid of conflict, he also finds excitement in it. Matahachi bravely follows his friend's footsteps and rushes to fight all the bandits by himself. Matahachi is not a bad fighter by any means. What usually makes him pale when compared to Takezo is the mindset he possesses. He only fights as a means to an end. He wants what counts for fighting, but avoids doing it unless it's necessary for survival. In an instant of pre-death lucidity, Tenma discerns why he can't beat Takezo and decides to run away.
I was careless because he's just a kid. Retreat for now. I'll come back prepared.
His eyes. I've never seen anyone look like that. Like a devil. Or a beast.
In Vagabond, eyes hold narrative importance to a great extent. There's a recurring motif regarding Takezo's eyes. Everyone who sees him fight always says the same thing. He's got the eyes of a beast. Takezo reaches Tenma and knocks him down, savagely hitting him to death. He is satisfied. He has finally had a chance to show his abilities, and he has taken full advantage of the opportunity. Matahachi has also succeeded. He killed all the bandits, and he greets Takezo with a stare charged with respect. Freebooters are weaklings. How was the boss? Nothing special.
Onion Matahachi and Shinmen Takezo. From the village of Miyamoto in Sakushu, we will take anyone on.
For one of the first times in his life, Matahachi understands Takezo. Sadly, it will only be a fugacious glimpse. Oko asks them where they are gonna go now, because Akemi and her are leaving. When asked why, she answers that she doesn't want to get killed by Tsuyikase Kohei, Tenma's younger brother. He will be a recurring character, and this brief mention already tells us he's someone vengeful. Just after proclaiming to himself that he has finally turned into a man, Matahachi feels confident enough to seduce Oko in the night after the attack. But a problem arises when she asks in the dark which one of the two he is. He starts to get paranoid. Which one? Does she mean Takezo or me? Does that mean she wants one instead of the other? Is that it? He decides to reject his identity. It's me, Takezo. Matahachi is haunted by his low self-esteem. He holds Takezo on a pedestal. He is his golden standard. Oko finds his lie interesting. It does reveal things about him, but she just decides to follow along, letting herself get carried away. She feels too lonely to care. You are a bad boy. I thought you had a fiancé. On the next morning, Matahachi feels guilty, but manages to recover his composure and starts being confident again. Let's go home, back to Miyamoto. I miss Sotsu. Yeah, you should go. What? You're not going home? Don't tell me you're going with Oko and Akemi. I left home, knowing I would never go back. From this day on, I am a vagabond. Takezo wants to go through a warrior pilgrimage. It's the best way for him to get stronger and fight the mightiest swordsman. But there is also another reason why he did not even question whether he would go back or not. Instead of comfort and warmth like Matahachi, he associates Miyamoto with his lower self, with the root of his suffering. Any place is an improvement from that. Unfortunately, the Tsuyikase gang is back. They seek retribution for the deaths of their leader and 4 of their men. and now they have brought more than 5 people. Takezo rushes to fight them, but he does not have his usual wooden sword. He left it inside. He is gonna kill them with a stick he found on his way back to the cabin. While Matahachi is following him, he realizes there are too many bandits. And he does not have his sword neither. He hesitates to help Takezo.
What am I doing? What am I doing just standing here?
Go and join him. Just take one of their swords. It's a gang and just a bunch of worms. Come on. Face it, Matahachi. If you fall behind Takezo now, you will spend the rest of your life in his shadow.
Why do I feel so inferior to my best friend? He's the same age, from the same village as me.
I'm going in. Gonna fight and kill those bandits and rescue Oko. Alright then, on the count of 3.
Matahachi has finally decided he will not tolerate being inferior to his friend anymore. He's entering Oko's place to save her and to prove his worth as a warrior and man. Sadly, the world just sent him a trial to test whether he was really ready to follow his friend's footsteps. Oko appeared behind him. She was safe. He could not resist the temptation and started getting intimate with her in the middle of the woods. He abandoned his friend, leaving him for dead. Takezo considered Matahachi an equal, but their friendship wasn't real. Matahachi ended up failing him because he didn't view Takezo as his friend, even though he may have said so to himself. That's the true tragedy of Matahachi Honiden. Meanwhile, Takezo is still fighting the Tsuyikase gang. Their members start to get scared. Takezo hasn't been cut a single time in the fight, and he's taken the lives of more than a dozen of their men. He brutally overpowers them with his physical strength and his lack of self-doubt, as he previously did with the refugee hunters. It's interesting to remark how he cut both arms of a bandit with a strike of his sword. A sword he was only wielding with one hand. Later in the story, prominent swordsmen will remark how it's impossible to cut through bone with a one-handed sword. Takezo was already doing it here at 17 years old. In the midst of the fight, Takezo tragically calls for Oko and Matahachi, believing they were in danger. After killing them all, Takezo wonders where his friends have gone.
In a setting full of corpses and crows, Takezo discovers Oko's comb on the ground.
He now understands what has happened. Matahachi has run away with Oko. But as his childhood friend, he feels the need to go back to the place that took everything from him. He's returning to Miyamoto village. He will tell Matahachi's mother, Osugi Honiden, that her son is still alive. He feels like he owes it to him. In the surroundings of Miyamoto, a little boy sees Takezo. The kid freezes up in fear, but only for a moment, because he runs away, back to the village. He is going to tell the news to Matahachi's mother.
Rani! Heita, already finished with today's work? Forget about work, I got something to tell.
She slaps Heita. Just by this interaction, we can assume the type of person Granny Honeyden is.
I ask if you are done with this work. We, the Honeyden, and the proud descendants of hard workers, you must not sully our reputation.
Granny is a woman that values reputation over anything else. You could argue it's the culture of the time and place, and you would be right, but her mercilessness and alleged love for her family make her a bit of an outcast in that regard, over virtually any other character that the story will present us. Also, Shin meant Takezo. Granny is astounded. Really? She rushes back to the Honeyden home, where she asks if her son, Matahachi, has returned. The members of the family think she's just being delirious and try to console her. She gets mad and hits one of them with her walking stick. The man that was hit is visibly upset, but he can't do anything about it, due to the authority she holds in the family.
Shin meant Takezo, who went off to warn me Matahachi has come home. That means my Matahachi must be back too.
After comprehending her son hasn't come back, Granny goes to the Shinmen family house, where she finds several soldiers who seem to be looking for Takezo, who killed 2 men when breaking through the gates of the province border. She tells the soldiers that Takezo is even more dangerous than they think.
At the age of 13, that bastard killed a full-grown man. His opponent was a seasoned martial artist, and Takezo beat him to a pulp. Takezo's wicked ways only got worse. In the end, he dragged my dear son off to war. How could he have survived, and not my Matahachi?
Otsu, the childhood friend of Takezo and Matahachi, and bride of the latter, was walking through the surroundings of the village when she saw the same soldiers Granny Honeyden was talking to some moments ago. They were surprised after finding the corpse of one of their comrades, and more so after discovering that the body was still warm, meaning that Takezo was still near them. While Otsu finds this scary, she never expected that as she walked away from the soldiers, Takezo would suddenly appear in front of her, emerging from a bush with surprising suddenness. She harbored no opposition towards Takezo whatsoever, but the sheer shock made her scream. The soldiers noticed it, and as they started searching for the wounded man near the bush, Otsu started to assimilate what had happened. She had seen Takezo again. Her facial expression confesses that he is someone really important to her. Why? We don't know yet. Now, why did Takezo greet Otsu? It was unnecessary. He had come to Miyamoto explicitly to tell Granny that her son was alive. That's all. And this task was of extreme importance to him. Just as Matahachi thought of Takezo as an ideal instead of his friend, Takezo sadly idealized Matahachi as his best friend, and thus he thought it was his duty to tell his mom the news of her son. He had postponed his warrior's pilgrimage in order to complete it, and had gone to the lengths of becoming a wanted man. But why did he stop to say hi to Otsu? She could have revealed his position. It was not an intelligent decision. It wasn't an intelligent decision because it was an emotional one. Takezo had apparently completed his goal, that of killing a general, and he has recovered his confidence by proving his strength to himself numerous times fighting the bandits The problem was that his main goal, becoming invincible under the sun, is so intangible that he knows he's made no real progress towards it. He already knew he was strong enough to kill the bandits. Unlike Matahachi, he wasn't surprised after fighting and defeating them. After the disappointment that came to him after killing the bandits and being left alone by Matahachi, he is in a moment of involuntary emotional weakness. He wants to rest under the warmth of Otsu, who was one of the, by that time, only 2 persons who he categorized as trustworthy.
It's no wonder you can't capture Takezo. He was an odd child who spent most of his time in the mountains. In other words, he is a beast. He will feed on birds, rabbits, or even tree bark. Whatever it takes, he will continue to elude your men. Once a beast escapes into the mountains, he is out of human reach.
Takezo is resting in the mountain when he discovers that the villagers are also chasing him. Because the situation had become more dangerous, he stopped a villager that was walking nearby.
He will have the farmer deliver the message to Granny instead of him. That way he will not need to enter the village.
But just after he released the villager, he was betrayed. Takezo's face in reaction to the disloyalty suggests that he's not surprised in any way about the fact.
Yet he finds it as despicable, as if it was the first time it had happened to him. He lives in a vicious cycle. He treats others with no compassion because he does not trust them, which in turn fits the image of beast the rest of the world has of him.
Consequently, this further diminishes his trust of people.
Takezo goes to the Honinen house to tell Granny the news.
After mere seconds of him making his appearance, Granny pulls out a knife and tries to stab Takezo.
I will kill you, and then myself.
Although he finds no issue in dodging the attacks, he is horrified, and rightfully so. Even though he was not out of his persona, of his shell, the sheer hatred felt by Granny towards him was traumatically overwhelming. He believes he's acting out of honor, doing a good thing for her, and Granny, in response, only tries to kill him, without even hearing what he has to say. At least, she stops trying to stop him after he tells her that Matahachi is still alive, but she is still mad, because he has come back without bringing Matahachi along with him. Takezo is forced to tell her her son is living with a woman in another province. The inner reaction of Granny to that fact is even more intense than the ones she portrayed before, but her boiling hatred for Takezo is so big that she decides she's gonna have to perform if she wants to kill him. She apologizes and tells him she had misbehaved.
She's realized he's been in the mountains for many days, without having had the opportunity to eat a proper meal, so she will cook one for him. Meanwhile, he can take a hot bath. So, Takezo, what are your plans now? I'm going to journey all across the country to polish my skills as a swordsman. To train in the way of the warrior, ah? Very admirable. I want to challenge men like Yagyu and Yoshioka,
all the master swordsmen renowned throughout the land. I want to find out how strong I really am. Takezo perceives the presence of more than a dozen soldiers waiting for him at the exit of the bathhouse. He's been betrayed. Again. But now, the emotional stabbing is even worse, because this time, he had actually opened up to her. He had trusted her, believed her. He, strangely, experiences a temporary wave of serenity.
The betrayal caused disappointment is so big that he now feels like he does not need people and that he does not owe anything to anyone. He is now stronger than before, because he can fight without remorse in the back of his head of thoughts related to other people. He is free of that, at least for now. Takezo starts beating the soldiers, citing his famous line,
Of course, if you are gonna try to kill me, I will kill you first.
That's how it's always been with him. Meanwhile, Otsu receives a letter. She wonders who would want to write a letter to an orphan like her. The letter was written by Oko, without the knowledge of Matahachi.
Oko says that Matahachi is burdened with thoughts about her. Now he is with Oko, so she should forget him.
Otsu had spent a year that passed since Matahachi and Takezo left to go to the war, waiting for Matahachi. Of course, she was influenced by Granny Honeyden, who kept telling her how fortunate she was to have gotten the chance of being part of the Honeyden family, an orphan like her. How proud she should be of it.
But aside from that, Otsu did personally wish for Matahachi to come back, and she did believe he was eventually returning.
He was her reason for being. Reading the letter completely shattered her worldview, and therefore her identity. But let's go back to Takezo's fight. Aoki, the one in charge of capturing Takezo, arrogantly looks at him, while he kills his soldiers. Such power is so strong, but there's no way that endurance can hold up with so many opponents. He will eventually become exhausted, and the moment this kid realizes that his very life is coming to an end, he will freeze up with fear. I can't wait to see the expression on his face. Takezo quickly breaks through all of the soldiers, gets in front of Aoki, and looks him in the eyes. Ironically, Aoki freezes in fear, mirroring the exact impression he had anticipated from Takezo. Luckily for him, he's only hit in the shoulder, allowing him to survive. You are both untrustworthy, you and your son. Takezo, because of the eye-opening experience previously described, can see how Matahachi failed him. He does not consider him his friend anymore. He is at a peak of mental clarity. Demon. I like the sound of it. This is a milestone for Takezo. He embraces the insult that everyone used to shun him, just as he, in Sekigahara, embraced his father's surname. Takezo escapes and runs away into the mountain, where he meets someone unlike anyone he had ever met. Takwan the monk. You might be big, but your heart is small. It's the size of a cat's. Who are you? Why would a beast need to know my name? Here they come. Aren't you going to run away?
I will kill you, even if you are a monk. Are you frightened? You'd cut me down if I were to even touch you. You keep your nerves on edge, and you are always ready to lash out. You distance yourself from everyone. It's because you are afraid of people. You are the weakest person in this village. When Taguan says Takezo is the weakest person in the village, he obviously uses the words in that specific way as shock value, for Takezo was only going to understand him if he said something so unconventional that it would be impossible to ignore. He calls him weak, because, following logic, if you fear someone, that must mean you are weaker than him. Although he could kill the whole village in one night if he wanted to, Takezo is the villager of Miyamoto who is most terrified of people, due to the mental wounds that same village caused him. He is surprised by what Taguan said, but something else also caught his attention. It's the first time a complete stranger has been able to see through his persona. Everyone that had met him prior had mistakenly thought he was so ready to kill anyone because he was a wild animal incapable of thought. But Taguan can understand him, and that frightens Takezo. Not only that, Takezo also feels doubt about his actions for one of the first times. With such nefarious individuals present in the village, such as Granny, who never stopped insulting him and trying to kill him, it's obvious to react offensively when put in Takezo's situation. But Taguan sees through his persona. He calls out the real Takezo. Why does he feel the need to kill Taguan? He feels something bad will happen to him if he does not. That's the textbook definition of fear. But he is not physically afraid of Taguan, so there is clearly a deeper problem. While Takezo is being haunted by the villagers' insults, he is attacked by someone who isn't part of the manhunt. It's the brother of Tenma. Remember him? Tsuyikase Kohei. He was mentioned by Oko. But Kohei isn't there to avenge his brother's death. He is there because he feels he was the one who should have killed Tenma. And because Takezo did so before he could, now he must kill him. Takezo, although hungry and tired, accepts Kohei's challenge. He had just seen Kohei's ability in battle. He is aware that in his current condition, there is a high chance of dying if he fights him, but he still decides to do it. In this specific instance, Takezo's hunger for conflict isn't something admirable. He is the one on the losing side, but he ends the talk and starts the fight, one in which he is probably going to meet his end. Takezo doesn't really value his life. We already saw it back in the Sekigahara aftermath. He's not fighting to protect his life, and that little regard for his well-being makes him very conscious of what death implies. This is beautifully told in the visual analogy of the mantis Kohei and the spider Takezo. Kohei comprehends that Takezo is just as self-destructive and careless as him. That, coupled with Takezo's physical strength, makes Kohei scared. Kohei flees the scene, but their fight reveals Takezo's position to the soldiers. About to fight them, Takezo starts questioning his place in the world. His introspectiveness makes him constantly ponder about his path. I was born into this world and have lived for 17 years. For what purpose?
What does the future hold in store for me? I don't care. I'm hated, hunted down. I kill and kill all over again. In the end, I will be cut down too. That is all there is. Takezo feels empty after the shallow murdering, represented by the crow motif, which was also present in Sekigahara, and after being abandoned by Oko and Matahachi when he defeated the Tsuyikase gang. Takuan accompanies Otsu to talk with Aoki. He can easily recognize the root of the problem, Aoki's incompetence. How could a fool who drinks all day capture Takezo? Takuan continues to taunt Aoki, highlighting his incompetence. Otsu, are you afraid of Takezo? Not at all. Aoki, Otsu might just save your neck. She's going to be the one who captures Takezo. Takuan promises Aoki that Otsu and him will travel into the woods. They will capture Takezo in less than 3 days. On their first night in the woods, Otsu tells Takuan about Takezo's past. When Takezo was 13, he traveled to a nearby village and challenged the strongest samurai who lived there. Takezo didn't even beat him with a sword. He used a wooden post to bring him to the floor. Then he proceeded to use the warrior's own sword to cut his throat. This is extremely interesting character-wise, and not only because Takezo killed a grown warrior when he was 13. Let me explain. Takezo felt strong enough at 13 years old to start working towards his objective of becoming invincible under the sun. He killed the strongest warrior in that village, but he still wasn't completely sure about himself. He doubted for an instant before killing him. It was that shred of doubt within his heart what allowed the overwhelming rejection he received from the Minamoto villagers after the event to get to him. The effect it had on his mind was so strong that he stopped his warrior travels. I am traveling far and wide, seeking worthy opponents. I wish to challenge the strongest man in this village. That's what Takezo said before killing the samurai. It implied he had taken on a warrior pilgrimage, just like the one he decided to partake in after the Battle of Sekigahara. But in the interval between his 13 and 17 years old, he did not travel the country. The repudiation influenced him heavily. Otsu cooks dinner for her and Takuan. The smoke caught Takezo's attention, and he approached the bonfire to find out who was responsible for it. Although Takezo felt completely needless of human contact when he was fighting against the soldiers at Granny's house, the high I talked about went off, and he was again in need of it, even more than before, because he was at an emotional low, but he repressed it, and it took a toll on him. When he could not hold it off anymore, it all returned, and his mind was helpless. All the raw emotions related to his traumatic experiences started tormenting him. At his lowest moment, at least till now, Takezo started doubting his possession, or even the very existence of what he previously knew he had, Otsu. The only one he felt would not damage him if he was to open up to her. Otsu, are you just like the others? Otsu starts crying, asks him about Oko, and goes on to hug him. Otsu not only hugs him, but also starts asking him about something other than himself, while also opening up her own shell.
Matahachi wrote me this terrible letter. I have been abandoned. Again.
She is also traumatized, and with her honesty, she completely pierces through Takezo's persona. This is liberating for Takezo. His mind can finally rest, and when that happens, his body also rests. He falls unconscious. Takezo is captured. He is hanged by his hips in a tree. When he wakes up, he notices two crows staring at him. They can see his fate. He will be dead. Soon enough, he will be another corpse, like the ones he's generated over the years. This is also the return of the crow motif used in this arc. It is a visual representation of Takezo's feelings of hopelessness and emptiness. Why don't you kill me, you damn monk? Takezo was sure about how he would die. He would keep cutting men down until he was cut too. But he wasn't cut down. He's hanging, starving, and immobile, in the same village he hated so much. He can use the heat of battle to forget his anxieties. He's completely unprotected against his own mind. It's almost as if they were humiliating him by exposing his inner void, his hollowness, by not allowing him the proper death he thought he was eventually going to get. That's who I am. I have always been ready to pay the consequences. It's time to pay for his sins. He starts reflecting about his life once again. He is the most introspective of all the Miyamoto villagers. Aside from their severe rejection, one of the reasons why he isolated himself was that he values human connection more than the rest of people. He prefers to have contact with no one than to have it with the people he knew. When Otsu discovers what has happened to Takezo, she immediately says, while trying not to cry, "Oh, Takezo, I feel like I have tricked him." Takuan answer surprises Otsu. Takezo does not feel that way. And he does not. Takezo at this stage has understood that Matahachi failed him, but he does not feel like Otsu has, even though one might think she has, given how he was captured thanks to her.
What a pleasant sight. You made up that story about him living somewhere with some woman. I'll find out for myself whether he's alive or not. The Honeyman family has lost its precious hair because of you. I can't wait to see you die up there. I'm going to check up on you every day and relish in your suffering.
As he gets more and more overwhelmed by his thoughts, the crows surrounding him also multiply. When almost all his buried feelings and traumas have come to the surface, the deepest source of his misery arises last. His parents. He remembers the time when he went to see his mother after his parents' separation. She lived in a nearby village. I just wanted to see her and show her how much I had grown. Takezo, you must go home to your father, answered his mother, while holding a newborn baby in her arms. I have to become stronger. I want to be strong
so that I will not have to depend on anybody. Yes, I will become stronger. I'm going to become invincible under the sun.
Rani and Taekwan keep visiting him, and he keeps on insisting for Taekwan to kill him, receiving no answer whatsoever from him. You must be getting tired of the view from up there, so why don't you take a good look at yourself? Takezo doesn't find any sense to what Taekwan told him. You damn monk! What is there besides darkness? Nothing. What happened with Takezo at the mountains has also helped Otsu to see things more clearly. She refuses Granny's offer to become a member of the Honeyden's family. She does not want to be a bride anymore because she hates Matahachi. He betrayed her. Takezo remembers what happened when he came back home after visiting his mother. He had decided he wanted to become invincible as an emotional coping mechanism. He told his father about it, who reacted extremely selfishly.
You too, huh? Well, pick up the sword then. You will not take it? So you think you can cut me down? Only one man can be invincible under the sun. Draw. You carry the blood of Shinmen Munisai. You will undoubtedly become strong, and eventually become a threat to me. Shall I just kill you now?
He proceeds to draw his sword to attack Takezo. However, it was a feint, as he only cuts his fringe.
You did not even flinch. No wonder you are called a demon child.
While the cross Ko, he breaks crying after remembering the incident.
Tsuyikase Kohi returns. He shames Takezo, telling him how miserable he is. Then he cuts the rope that held him, making him fall to the floor from a height of more than 4 meters. But just when he was going to cut Takezo's throat, he noticed an overwhelming, intimidating presence. Kohei could not do any other thing than running away. He cut me down with his mind. Who the hell was that? A monk? He defeated me.
It's a new day. Granny goes to see Takezo, but she's blinded by the sunlight and shocked by the lack of crows. Both things are new. All of this signifies something's about to change. Taekwan carries Takezo's unconscious body to the mountains. He's going to let him choose where he wants to die. He leaves him on a rock where he has a view of Miyamoto village, and he's going to give him a sermon before killing him. You've cut down so many. In the end, you will be cut down yourself. Is that what you want? That's right. Then you have lived your life to the fullest. Takezo, why aren't you smiling? You should rejoice. You are going to die now. Taekwan is correct. If that is indeed the life he had wished to live, he ought to be happy. He has lived it to its utmost extent. Yet he remains discontented. Takezo starts physically self-harming, smashing his head onto the rock. He had never crossed that line before. He had previously only done it psychically. Yes, he had put himself in situations he probably would have never gotten out of. But now, he's actually the one who's hurting his own body. This tells us that everything he had been negating and hiding from himself has already come to the surface. Takezo is at his breaking point. Why? Why was I born, if only to be abandoned and shunned, to be feared, hated, and despised by all? Kill me. Let me die. I am the son of a demon, and I deserve to die. Why was I even born? Will you throw your life away? Will you throw everything away? Even the person you used to be? Taekwan discerns that the present manifestation of Takezo is merely his persona. He is aware that deep within, Takezo does not desire to end his former young self. Takezo starts crying. Is it true, Taekwan? Do I really deserve to live? As he's at his breaking point, anything that happens to him now will be of crucial importance. Taekwan's speech resonates with him. He finally acknowledges that he wants to live, and that he wants to end his toxic relationship with fighting. He genuinely loves fighting, but now he wants to do it out of joy, not to cope with his inner darkness.
There is no light for those who do not know darkness. Live on and endure the shadows. Takezo. And brightness shall come your way. Taekwan has saved Takezo's life, but Takezo has too many ties to his old self. He has to become a new person. Shinmen and Takezo died here today. That's all the villagers of Miyamoto need to know, especially Granny Honeyden. That's what I will tell the authorities too. But never forget where you came from, the place in which you grew up. Carry Miyamoto village inside yourself, Takezo. From now on, you shall be called Miyamoto Musashi.
Four years have passed since the last part of understanding Vagabond. Musashi is now 21 years old, and he's going to Kyoto to challenge the mighty Yoshioka school, as he told Granny Honeyden back in Miyamoto village. His gaze is calmer than before, but he still intends to become invincible under the sun, and he does not care how many people he has to defeat in order to achieve it. He still carries the wooden sword, the one he got from Oko's collection. The weapon, coupled with his unkempt and nonchalant look, draws the attention from everyone he crosses paths with. Many swordsmen masters, renowned throughout the land, are here, and their names are even known in the small Miyamoto village. Musashi is aware of that, and he has decided to take action. He has always felt like he was strong enough to be worthy of the invincible title. The only man he has ever feared is his father, and that one's no longer around. Like he has said to himself, there is no use postponing the inevitable. He is now determined to confirm his suspicions. He will challenge the strongest men of the city. While he's walking, he crosses paths with a small boy with a very feminine look. He's drunk, and he is also surrounded by girls, and they seem to adore him. But Musashi is only surprised after discovering that this young fellow also carries a sword. Musashi wasn't aware of the fact, but the man he had just walked by was Yoshioka Seiyuro, Kyoto's strongest swordsman, and the very same man he had come to face. Seiyuro is also surprised by Musashi's unorthodox appearance and decides to approach him. He gives him a very blunt warning. He advises Musashi to not do anything rash, in case he's heading for the Yoshioka school. They don't play there, he says. He informs Musashi of how they will kill him if they feel offended by his arrogant confidence. But instead of being dispelled, Musashi's motivation only seems to grow. I am prepared to die, but I don't plan on just throwing my life away, he says. Musashi hasn't forgotten the lessons he learned from the morning he almost died in Takwan's arms. But just after that, Seiyuro draws his sword at a speed at which Musashi cannot even perceive it, and when he finally notices it, Seiyuro's sword is a centimeter away from his neck. Musashi is obviously astonished after this. You see, you are dead. Musashi experiences a weird mix of emotions. He feels frightened, humiliated, and excited all at the same time. If that man he encountered was your average Kyoto swordsman, he would die before he could step foot into the Yoshioka school. But his vast experience in sword fighting just told him otherwise. That man was someone really important. He felt it, and he was still going to challenge the Yoshioka school. And he does not fail to do so, because he declares his intentions and carelessly enters the Yoshioka dojo. I am Miyamoto Musashi, here to challenge Yoshioka Seiyuro, he says. Of course, he does not know that he has already met Seiyuro. They tell him that before facing Seiyuro, he first has to defeat his disciples. If he can, he will then face the senior disciples, like Ueda Ryohei. They also ask him whether there's someone out there who can claim his dead body. And he says that it does not really matter. They can do whatever they want with it. And this takes us back to the time when Musashi had very little regard for his life when he was 17. He was even self-destructive, as we noted in Understanding Vagabond Part 1. But after all, he has conserved positive aspects of those times. There was no need to erase everything. He is conscious of how ephemeral his existence can be with the lifestyle he has chosen, the life of the sword. And he is also surprised by how weak the Yoshioka disciples are. He hasn't fought them yet, but he just knows it, and only by their reaction to his provocation. They don't take his challenge seriously. They think he's a country hick, and they believe it's not a fight to the death, because they are fighting with wooden swords. But once they start actually fighting him, Musashi mercilessly kills them, making them pay for their blunt mistake. And this is the moment when he realizes he is strong enough to take on the entire Yoshioka school. Ueda Ryohei, the guy I just mentioned before, a senior disciple, decides finally that Musashi is worthy of fighting the senior disciples. And he asks him, out of sheer curiosity, whom he has studied under. Musashi replies saying that he has never had a particular teacher. His father, Shinmen Munisai, maybe. But primarily, the mountains and everything in them. The mention of Shinmen Munisai shocks Ueda. Why? Because the deceased master of the Yoshioka school, Yoshioka Kempo, the mighty, from whom the school takes its name, was only defeated once in his entire life by one man. And that man had been Musashi's father, Shinmen Munisai. It's at this moment that Ueda infers that he is really a self-taught warrior, because Musashi's stance is completely unconventional in a raw and unique kind of way. And after trading blows with the Ronin, he also understands that his school would be crushed if he was to be hit by him. If you remember, Musashi was extremely strong when we saw him for the last time, and 4 years have passed, and he only seems to have grown into a better warrior. Musashi asks Ueda how he's ranked as a fighter in Kyoto, and to the surprise of the Yoshioka disciple, he also explains that he's a bit of an ignorant when it comes to the quote-unquote ranking of the fighters. He feels that Ueda is quite formidable, so he is curious about how close he would be to becoming invincible after defeating him. But someone else had also heard his monologue. Yoshioka Denshichiro, the younger brother of Seiyuro, a mountain of a man who allegedly took swordsmanship even more seriously than Seiyuro, and was the true heir of Yoshioka Kempo. And Denshichiro is deeply offended. Ueda tries to convince Denshichiro to not fight Musashi, because Denshichiro is the head of the school, and thus he has to be selective with who he fights. Ueda tells him that if he wants Musashi dead, he will kill the Ronin himself. But there is also someone else who objects to that remark, Gion Toji, one of the senior disciples who has come back from the pleasure quarters with Seiyuro. Toji argues that the Yoshioka school only has one master, implying that Denshichiro cannot hold a candle to Seiyuro. And this is the moment when Musashi confirms his previous suspicions. The boy he had met was indeed someone extremely important, but he would have never thought he could have been Yoshioka Seiyuro. So you came after all, even after I warned you not to, says Seiyuro, the actual master and head of the school. Everyone at the school, even after having watched Musashi trade blows with Ueda, who is probably the second strongest Yoshioka, still believes he is stupid for believing he can get the title of invincible after fighting the Kyoto swordsman. The only one who caught his intention right away and asked him to please not do it was Seiyuro, and that's truly a statement to Seiyuro's power, because only someone as detached as Musashi from the average swordsman could see he's extremely serious about his intentions. Seiyuro knows he can beat Musashi in a matter of seconds, but he is also the only one who acknowledges his strength. So, wanting to prevent more bloodshed, he decides to avoid conflict with the Sakushu Ronin by offering him some sake of the best quality. But Musashi, even after having received a first-hand demonstration of Seiyuro's skill, does not want to back down. He breaks the sake's vessel, shocking everyone even more than he had before. Seiyuro reacts in a minimalist way, not being visibly offended, while also holding his ground at the same time. He intimidates Musashi just by standing in front of him. The Ronin cannot stop shaking when he's in front of Seiyuro, even though he is not traditionally scared. Then Shichiro gets so angry that he says he will be the one to kill Musashi, and he promises he will do it with a single blow. But ironically, when the two were about to fight, Seiyuro, having realized conflict with Musashi was unavoidable, anticipates his brother and attacks the intruder. Here we can appreciate again the surgeon-level control Seiyuro has over his blade. He cuts in half the wooden sword Musashi was using, as well as his forehead. Seiyuro bites before barking. He is the opposite of his brother. What a quick draw. His arm reached out like a giant snake. So this is Yoshioka Seiyuro, thinks Musashi. But Seiyuro proceeds to warn Musashi once again by telling him this. When a beast encounters an enemy, it looks ferocious and lets out an angry roar. Do you know why? The enemy might retreat, and that way the beast can avoid a fight. The first instinct is always to avoid a fight. Musashi was deeply moved by Seiyuro's attack. He was humbled, but it did not make his anger disappear. It only exacerbated it. Musashi, with his face covered in the blood of his forehead wound and his weapon cut in half, requests Seiyuro again an opportunity for a match. Seiyuro alerts him of the fact that sometimes persistence will get you nowhere, but Musashi still insists. This is when Seiyuro, realizing there is nothing else he can do, tells Musashi he is not interested in fighting him and leaves. Gion Toji surprises Musashi, saying that he's the strongest man in the Yoshioka school after Seiyuro, and he lets the Ronin know that if he manages to get out of the school alive, he will take him on. Musashi's first impression of Gion Toji is that of an arrogant guy, but there is also something else I want to discuss, a parallel between the two, Gion Toji and Miyamoto Musashi. If you look closely, trying to compare them, you will realize that both have incredibly similar designs, and even their attitudes are alike. Take for example the cocky way in which Toji told Musashi that he could fight him if he beat everyone else in the dojo. It was the exact same way in which Musashi told the school that he only wanted to fight Seiyuro. But despite all of this, when you first see them, you would not have thought of comparing them, because there is something fundamentally different between them. Their main difference is the expression of their faces. Okay, but what do I mean by this? Let's compare how they would react when faced with the same situation to better understand what differentiates them from one another. What situation am I talking about? Being seduced by Oko. Yes, the woman from Understanding Vagabond Part 1. When Toji accompanied Seiyuro to the pleasure quarters, Oko tried to seduce him. Musashi went through the exact same, but he rejected her, while Toji did not. Toji is a character underappreciated in terms of the thematic importance he has in the story, and don't dare to forget him, because he will show up again. Meanwhile, then Shichiro discovers that 5 of the Yoshioka disciples
have been killed by Musashi. He starts crying and tells the Ronin that he has 5 very good reasons to kill him. Musashi finally takes him seriously because he has no other choice. He has comprehended that he has to fight Denshichiro if he wants to get out of the school. Denshichiro requests for someone to give Musashi a real sword, but the disciples argue that he does not deserve a proper duel. He just deserves to die. And Musashi, unintentionally funny as always, says he's fine with that because he intends to beat Denshichiro with his broken wooden practice sword, 1 piece at each hand. Musashi feints Denshichiro and hits his shoulder, but he quickly realizes that he has not broken any of the Yoshioka brothers' bones, and he understands that with such a short weapon he cannot hit with all the strength he has. He has to change his sword, and so he does. Musashi picks Denshichiro's practice sword from the wall and proclaims that he will kill him with his next blow, just like Denshichiro did before fighting Musashi. Denshichiro argues that the source of his confidence is ignorance and immaturity, hope with no basis in reality. But Musashi just does not care and proceeds to attack the big warrior. Denshichiro sees through Musashi's attack and knocks him down, to the surprise of the Ronin. I know what you are thinking. You are wondering, how can a slow Hulk like me dodge your sword? I will tell you how. I was once a child too, and ever since I can remember, I have had to take on the sword of Yoshioka Seiyuro. Miyamoto Musashi, I can see right through your sword, says Denshichiro just before cutting Musashi's upper body. Musashi is really surprised that Denshichiro has been able to cut him. But meanwhile, Denshichiro is even more surprised at the fact that Musashi was able to dodge enough of the attack for it to not be lethal. I gave everything I had in that single stroke. It should have cut right through his bones, but I felt no bone, and now Miyamoto Musashi is saving strength for one final suicide attack, says Denshichiro to himself in an inner monologue. He knows that if he can survive Musashi's last attack, he will be able to defeat him. But there is a problem with that reasoning. He too is in a bad condition. When Musashi hit him with half of his former sword, Denshichiro dismissed the attack, saying he had not broken through his bones. This statement was true, but with the way he said it, he made it seem like the attack was frail. But the truth was different. The attack was strong enough for Denshichiro to wonder whether he would be able to move his arm for one more attack. Explaining in short terms, his lead arm was messed up. Meanwhile, Musashi cannot move, and he wonders whether it is because he is scared. Is he? We will know soon. But before continuing, I have got to address the elephant in the room for those who have read the manga, Matahachi Honiden. So far in this volume, I have been ignoring Matahachi's side of the story, because I will cover his whole arc in one specific video, only talking about him. The reason for this is that ever since this volume, he does not influence Musashi's story in any way, except in one. If you have not read the volume, all you have to know is that he set the Yoshioka school on fire while Musashi
was fighting Densichiro. That's it. And don't worry if you have read the manga, because I will do justice to Matahachi's arc. The Yoshioka noticed the fire, and they sent one group of men to capture the man who caused it, Matahachi, while they sent another squad to stop the fire. But then Shichiro and Musashi are so focused on their bout that they don't seem to care about the fire. They don't care that there is a fire, and they don't care who has caused it. But just when we were about to see who was going to end victorious, who was going to be able to land one last blow, then Shichiro stopped the fight. Then Shichiro has grown to respect Musashi deeply and decides to save his life by postponing the match, as well as potentially saving his own life, because as we have seen, he might not have been able to attack again. Then Shichiro gives Musashi 1 year of time to prepare. But that goes the other way too. They both have 1 year to improve their skills before the rematch. Musashi is euphoric, but he accepts it because adrenaline is the only thing that is keeping him standing, and in view of the fact that the fire was completely out of control. He gets out of the school, arising from the fire like he had come out of hell. In a state of rageful ecstasy, he starts to scream with more passion and wrath than all the Kyoto citizens could ever amass together. They are so strong! He reconsiders what he has just said and corrects himself. No! I am stronger! Musashi feels like he is finally back on track. He has met his destiny coming to Kyoto, and now it's time to turn into reality everything he has always known he could do. He is determined to beat the Yoshioka brothers. He will not let them subdue him again. It is confirmed. He will return to Kyoto in 1 year to fight them. But until then, he is going to face other masters of combat to get ready. In the last part of understanding Vagabond, we covered the first Yoshioka arc. In case you have forgotten, or you just haven't seen it, let me do a quick recapitulation to know where we left off. Musashi was fighting Densichiro, but their match ended abruptly because the latter decided they would continue in 1 year from then, as they were both extremely close to fainting and the Yoshioka school was on fire. Knowing his condition, it was obvious that Musashi wasn't going to last much longer before blacking out, and although the manga doesn't show it, he did black out. Musashi wakes up. The first things he sees are a bearded man and a young boy. The man ends up being Takwan, and the boy, Jotaro, was the one who nursed him back to health. This kid, Jotaro, deeply admires Musashi and wants to become his disciple. But Musashi tells him he does not accept the students. He believes he has enough problems alone. If he were to take Jotaro on his travels, his progress would be much slower. And that's all Musashi cares about, his swordsmanship. But Takwan, who was hearing their conversation, starts advising Musashi, as he always does when they meet each other. I thought you might have matured a little. Don't you realize how precious life is? He says. And he's right. Musashi had learned to appreciate life. He had decided he deserved to live and to be happy, as we saw in the first part of understanding Vagabond. But he had always been careless. He had solved many internal problems that morning in Miyamoto with Takwan and Otsu, but his bravery, bordering on the absurd, was still an intrinsic part of himself. The world is full of strong men. Does that scare you? Asks the monk. No, it invigorates me. Takwan asks Musashi about Otsu. If you don't remember, Otsu was Musashi's childhood friend and the only person he could trust. It's heavily implied, even by this time, that the two love each other, but Musashi did not allow her to travel with him. He rejected her, just as he has just done with Yotaro. Takuan is really surprised when Musashi tells him he's not interested in what has been of Otsu's life, but as we know, that is not entirely true, because he got tense when the monk mentioned her name. And Takuan even says that he called for her in his sleep. The next night, Musashi keeps dreaming about a naked Otsu and wonders what's wrong with himself. He chose not to travel with her, because as much as he appreciated her, he appreciated even more a life following the way of the sword. But now, his mind cannot forget her, and she is not even there. But let's do a quick pause of Musashi's story to see what has happened with the Yoshioka disciples after the school fire. When Gion Toji and Yoshioka Seiyuro found out about the fire at the school, they reacted, but in opposite ways. Toji was so angry he could not breathe. He swore he was going to seek retribution for the Yoshioka school. He would find Miyamoto Musashi, and he would not fail to kill him. Now, he was an assassin for the Yoshioka, and Musashi would not be able to escape him. Seiyuro, on the other hand, was as calm as one could be in such a situation. Any person who didn't know who he was would have never guessed he was the head of the school that was being burned to ashes. He stoically took the decision for his men to tear down what was left of the school, so the fire would not spread to the neighboring buildings. On the next morning, then Shichiro took the opportunity to take a one-year trip following the warrior's pilgrimage, the same thing Musashi had decided to do. His first stop would be the invincible Yagyu Sekishusai. This is also one of the swordsman masters Musashi intended to fight, and one we will see more of in following arcs. Then Shichiro considered Yagyu to be the only person he could learn from after his father's death. And now, let's continue with Musashi's story. Musashi rejects the idea of taking Yotaro as a disciple once again, and that reminds Takuan of the time he did the same to Otsu. Takuan starts making fun of him, and his quote-unquote always trying to be tough attitude, trying to teach a lesson to Musashi, but Musashi is desperate, and even though he's extremely ashamed of doing it, he asks Takuan for advice of how he can deal with his dreams about Otsu. So you think about her a lot? I think about her all the time. Musashi can't even look at Takuan in the eyes when saying it, but he really needs the monk's advice. Takuan is delighted after hearing this. He says that Musashi has become more human since he last saw him. Takuan also declares that even him could cut down Musashi, given his current confused state. Musashi does not believe what he hears, but Takuan proves it. He does so by picking up two sword-shaped sticks from the ground. He gives one to Musashi. If someone like me can cut you down, you will die before you ever see Otsu again. Takuan tells Musashi they should have a match, but Musashi feels he's being underestimated. I am not 17 anymore. I could kill you with this crummy stick. But Takuan interrupts him. By the way, about Otsu, Musashi quickly pays attention to what Takuan had to say, and the latter takes the opportunity to break his stick in Musashi's shoulder. Takuan attacked Musashi with the stick because he wanted to prove to him that the repression of his thoughts about Otsu was making him weak. Musashi is directing all of his mental energy trying to not have unavoidable thoughts. That was... No! It was fair. In order to win, in order to survive, it was a valid move. And I fell for it.
I am so weak, says Musashi to himself. What's wrong with me? A mere 4 years of training, just because I killed a bunch of scraps at the Yoshioka school, just because I survived a fight with Densichiro, I have become arrogant. And yet, when he was fighting Densichiro, he did not appear to hold him in such a high regard. He kept insulting him, and insisted on telling him he would die in his next attack. What does this mean? It shows us that although he did believe that he was stronger than Densichiro, the insults of the Yoshioka got to him in some way. Just like the insults of the Miyamoto villagers after finding out he killed a skilled samurai at 13 years old did get to him, as we covered in the first part of Understanding Vagabond. Musashi only believed fully to be Densichiro's equal after having fought him. This is really interesting. He keeps having intrusive thoughts, so he jumps into a freezing cold river to calm his mind. But he is only treating the symptoms, not the root of the problem. And this is when one of the most legendary dialogues of Vagabond, if not the most, takes place. Otsu is distracting you, and she's not even here. Maybe it would not have made a difference if she came with you. Are you in love with her? I am devoted to the way of the sword. The more one tries to look away, the more one gets preoccupied. Once your heart is preoccupied, your sword will not be true. Then you will die. Musashi, distracted with his thoughts about Otsu, had become like the peasants and samurais he had always despised, and who he had always beaten so easily. He was absent from the sword. He was like the Yoshioka disciples, those same ones who had a weakness that surprised him. Preoccupied with a single leaf, you will not see the tree. Preoccupied with a single tree, you will miss the entire forest. Don't be preoccupied with a single spot. See everything in its entirety, effortlessly. That's what it means to truly see. Musashi kind of understands what Takuan has tried to teach him, but he is not really able to apply it. But don't worry, because this quote will remain in his mind, and Musashi will eventually understand it in a way that will make Takuan proud. Takuan the monk eventually leaves Musashi because he is going to pay a visit to the Yagyu, old friends of his. Keep in mind, this is the same school Densichiro wants to challenge. And the next night, Musashi, alone in the dark, starts thinking about the state of his mind while carving Buddhas in wood, an activity he performs in times of extreme introspectiveness, such as this one. Back when I was 17, everyone shunned me. People called me a demon, but as a swordsman, I was completely devoted. I was stronger back then. And he remembers the last conversation he had with Takuan, trying to make sense of it. These wicked thoughts, they are distracting me from the way of the sword. Wicked thoughts? Are you suggesting that Otsu is wicked? Answers Takuan. No! I did not say that. It's just that my thoughts about her are. Your thoughts are not wicked. They are perfectly natural feelings. You think these feelings go against the way of the warrior, but they only get twisted and bent out of shape when you repress them and try to keep them contained. Musashi, you are the man who drives himself to all manner of extremes in pursuit of the way of the sword. You are also the man who dreams of Otsu and agonizes himself over it. All those men are aspects of yourself. They are all a part of you. Be aware of yourself and accept yourself as you are
That is where your training should begin. Musashi puts into practice what Takuan taught him. He does not repress his thoughts about Otsu anymore, nor does he try to deceive himself into thinking that he does not miss her. He had been involuntarily collecting those emotions for so much time that when he finally freed them, they overwhelmed him. Musashi goes through a night of extreme torment, but he manages to make it through. After having resisted all his suffering in the darkness of the night, Musashi feels renewed the morning after his breaking point. He goes to a jelly river to focus his mind and train. Seijuro, then Shichiro, I will defeat both. I swear it, I will defeat them. The stronger, the better. I need to find strong opponents, and I will win, no matter what. I am going to become invincible. And this is when Musashi finds out about something quite funny. Funny for us, but not for him. Although Takuan and Musashi parted in separate ways, Yotaro followed Musashi without his knowledge. The boy is really determined to learn under him. Musashi is surprised Yotaro followed him all this way. So he asks Yotaro whether he has any parents to come back to. But Yotaro doesn't have any parents. Yotaro tells him he wants to become strong, to be able to survive by himself without anyone's help. That's why he wants to become his disciple. Musashi, having opened his mind after putting to practice the lessons from Takuan, can relate to Yotaro, and it's really easy to see why. Yotaro reminds him of himself when he was his age. Although he never had a person, a context, or a situation similar to Yotaro's, where he had a positive parental figure such as himself now, to which he could bend to. But he can still accurately recognize the feelings and fears Yotaro is dealing with, and he now feels mentally strong enough to help him. He pats Yotaro in the head while he is crying and tells him to become strong together. He invites him to come along to the Hosoin Temple, his next stop. Musashi has finally recognized his need for others. He is at peace with that, at least for now. It is a milestone of his life journey. He has learned how he can recognize, understand, and dominate his own emotions. Otherwise, they would have destroyed him from within. With his mind focused, he can finally continue his journey.